You don't remember what you said, your last conversation with your loved ones, with Maggie and Paul. You don't remember what you said. You might have said that. He says, I might have said that, but I don't remember. But you remember exactly what happened with picking up the chicken from the dog's mouth? You went to get the chicken, which the dog was coming towards you to show you that he's got a chicken. And you know, getting the chicken, and you know everything that has to do with the dog and the chicken, but you don't know what happened and what you said exactly the last time that you saw your wife and son.
I can't tell you the exact words.
You don't remember your conversation after you put that chicken up. Did y'all talk about the chicken?
No, I don't think we did.
Did you talk with Paul about Cash's tail?
After the chicken?
Yeah.
No, I know I didn't do that.
So is the kennel video still going on before you go get the chicken? I mean, you've heard it, correct? You've heard it in this courtroom.
I don't know exactly, but in close timing to Bubba coming out of those woods with the chicken, I got up and took the chicken from him.
So did you say goodbye? According to your new story?
He's smiling.
Did I say goodbye?
Yeah.
Did I say
Did you talk to
goodbye?
him at all, or did you just get the chicken, put it on there, jump on there, and just take off?
I wouldn't have just gone off. I mean, I would have said, I'm leaving.
Okay.
Did I say goodbye or bye?
And again, go ahead.
I mean, there would have been some, there would have been some exchange. I'm not staying here.
Well, what was that exchange? I mean, you've had such a photographic memory about these news stories. What happened here?
This is Mihaela with Art of Experiencing. Today we're going to take a look and try to understand why actors, great actors, are better trained in understanding behavior than lawyers. Lawyers who do not know human behavior, therefore they do not know how to respond in the moment. They do not know how to be present to listen to the defendant in this case. Why do they not take acting classes as they should so they can have a better chance at winning their case? This is the highlights from the cross-examination from the state, from Mr. Waters, who is the prosecutor. From the very beginning, when Alec, sometimes called Alex due to the X in the first name, which the two sounds of X phonetically would be kısı, therefore some people call him Alec, k, like k, and s, which in Latin, phonetically, it is pronounced kısı. Some people call him Alec, some people call him Alex, using the first k or using the second of the X, which is s. I'm not sure if they do it consciously. I'm not sure if they do it subconsciously, but that should have been something that you, Mr. Waters, could have asked him. The same goes with the last name. His name is pronounced differently by different people. Some people call him Murdaugh, and other people call him Murdaugh, Murdaugh, due to the phonetics. Some people pay attention to the last sounds of the last name, and other people do not. That would have given Mr. Waters, the prosecutor, such a way in before he started to question Alex, and it would have been a very personal way. It would have been a nice way if he decided to say, "Good morning, how are you?" instead of saying, "I was a law student a few years behind you," and given the opportunity to Alex to respond, "I don't remember you." He let himself fall into a trap instead of him saying, "Would you prefer me to call you Mr. Alec? Would you prefer me to call you Mr. Murdaugh? Or would you prefer me to call you Mr. Murdaugh?" Which sounds very much like murderer. If I were to work with an actor who was portraying this character, which I am sure down the line they're going to have a fictional story about this whole trial, about this whole case, because everything in this storyline, I'm just so sad that it's actually not a storyline as in a fictional story, but this really happened to two people, in my opinion, at the hands of the defendant. I know that we have to wait until the end when the jurors, which in this case are the audience, will make the decision what they believe and what do they not believe. And I only hope that they are smarter than the lawyers. I hope they are smarter than the defendant who is playing them. If he were a character interpreting this man in an acting scenario, I would have caught him in so many lies and I would have addressed those lies because that's what we do as actors. That's what we do as acting coaches. We want to create believable characters. In order for this character, for example, to be a believable one, he cannot get away with telling untruths. How do you know he's telling untruths? By paying attention, by knowing how to listen, by knowing how to respond. He was giving so many answers that Mr. Waters could have just grasped onto to take it further, to follow up, to find out something that he probably wasn't even aware before he started the questioning. He would have been able to catch him in all these untruths, in my opinion, because Mr. Waters is a really bad actor, lawyer. He came in with a preconceived idea of what he wanted to ask. His ego took over. He lost by not giving himself the opportunity to listen to what the answers were, which were different than what he had expected. You have to remember this guy here, the defendant, was all his life able to fool so many people with the financial situations, with the roadside incident, with the boat that started everything for this family. And I believe that's when everything started to go really, really bad for him. In my understanding of this, I believe, as if he were a character, if I were to analyze this person, that when the boat accident happened with his son, the little detective driving the boat, and in which there was an accident, and one of the beautiful young ladies, one of them on the boat, was thrown in the water and was found dead. His younger son, Paul, and his wife, Maggie, were taken out, I believe, happened due to that boat accident, but it doesn't have anything to do with what he's trying to change the story to be. He's trying to change the story to be that it must have been somebody. He's not saying the family of the people in the boat. He's not saying this. He's not saying that. He doesn't have any concrete answers. Paul, little detective Paul, Papa, was the one that left clues by having taped that video that puts him at the place where everything happened. Jurors to be able to understand that he, for so long, kept saying to everybody, the police, his friends, to everyone, his family, that he was not at the place, at the kennels where the dogs were kept on the property. If it weren't for the little detective Paul to have shot that video that he never got to send to his friend about the dog that was having some sort of issues, this guy would have never had to come and testify. The only reason he came to testify is because he was caught in a lie. He thought that he was smarter than everybody else. He thought that nobody was going to find out that he was lying, the same as he was able to get away with lies for 10 years of his life. So when Mr. Waters went to cross-examine him, he would have started with, "Good morning, good afternoon. What would you like me to call you, sir? Would you like me to call you Alec Murdaugh, or would you like me to call you Alex Murdaugh?" That would have been something that would have caught him by surprise because he was knowledgeable. Alec was knowledgeable enough as a lawyer to know how the interrogation, how the questioning is going to go. So he was so prepared over so many years, himself doing the same kind of things in trials to know how to play Mr. Waters. And Mr. Waters, because he was so infatuated with coming on top of the situation, you can't put to the side knowing that this trial is being filmed. No matter how much you try, you have to be such a great actor to be able to know that there's an audience, the audience meaning us, all of us watching, but most importantly, the most immediate audience, the present audience in the place, which are the jurors, to be able to know how to go about moment by moment by moment, listen, answer. What did he say? Be in the moment. Forget about what you wanted to ask because he's giving you gifts and you don't know how to take them to play in your favor. That shows that he is a bad actor. Because remember, we're doing this as if they were characters in a scenario. When he, Mr. Murdaugh, went to get prepared to answer Mr. Waters' questions, what he did, he wasn't sitting like I am right now. He wasn't sitting like I am right now facing this way because he knew from all the trials, from all his career as a lawyer, a successful lawyer, which he doesn't want to admit to because he doesn't want to admit to the jurors that he was a success. He's trying to be humble now by saying, I don't think I was a successful lawyer, which I think was really horrible for him to say that. He played the opposite. So when he went to sit down, he fixed the microphone. I don't have my microphone, but the audience was facing this way. So he sat himself in the chair. Unlike all the other people who have testified during the whole 4 week or 5 weeks of trial, I don't even know how long it's been, because he's so knowledgeable. He sat in the chair and he prepared the microphone. He got close to it because he wants to be heard. And he was facing sideways. He was looking the jurors directly. His body was in the chair facing them. That automatically, to me, if I were Mr. Waters, the prosecutor, I would have been an observer of what he's doing in the moment, the same way that I would have been a great listener. And I would have asked him the question, or I would have said, Mr. Murdaugh, are you comfortable in the chair? I see you are turning your body in such a way for you to be able to face the jurors. Is this something that you do because you know how you have been able to manipulate so many people before this? You were speaking to those people whom you stole money from directly. Are you doing the same thing right now? Are you playing the jurors the same way that you played all the other victims whom you stole money from when you were supposed to be fighting for them? Did you do the same thing that you are doing right now by placing your body directly facing the jurors so you can look them in the eye? Did you look your other victims for over 10 years whom you stole from, Mr. Murdaugh? Did you directly adjust your body to be able to look them in the eye? Then, if he would have asked that question, his answers, which were so prepared, would not have mattered. It would not have mattered that he kept on going, well, I don't know, sir, Mr. Waters, I don't understand. Yes, I remember conversations with those victims, but I don't remember one incident where I actually looked somebody straight in the eye. It wouldn't have mattered if he said that because Waters would have already created that visual of him doing it, because he already would have made the statement of, that's what you're doing now, the way that you're sitting in the chair right now. You're demonstrating that you know exactly what to do. You're demonstrating that you are a rehearsed person in telling lies, in your body adjustment towards the jurors, so you can make believe that you care about them and you acknowledge them and you are respectful to them, proves that without him having to answer, yes, I did. Waters never looked at Alex. He never looked at him and took in what he was doing, what he was saying, so he could reply back and acknowledge that. The prosecutor, Mr. Waters, he's asking the question, when did you decide that you are going to come up and tell us a new story? You have a new version of your story. That was really good. It would have been even better if he would not have rolled his eyes whenever he wasn't getting back the answers that he was hoping for. Rolling his eyes shows the jurors, the rest of us, I know the rest of us don't matter, but the jurors, that he's frustrated, that he's questioning, and Murdaugh's answers are not what he was expecting. He was not answering as Waters was expecting him to. He didn't know what to do in the moment with the new answers. An actor has to be trained after he memorizes the scenario, after the great actors memorize what the scene is about. In this case, as if it were an interrogation, a questioning, then they know to put that to the side, leave themselves alone, and be present to the other character. In this case, the two characters are Alec Murdaugh and Creighton Waters. Creighton Waters was not prepared to put to the side his plan of how he was going to question Alec Murdaugh and be in the moment and listen to what he's giving him and follow up. It was so frustrating to watch. How is it possible that actors have more training psychologically, behaviorally? They recognize small details of someone's behavior and then know how to adjust to go on in the moment, in the present moment, by leaving behind the anticipated way in which he wanted to question him. I thought it was really bad on the part of Mr. Waters that he was not doing that. It showed that this guy who's a manipulator, he was able to manipulate the people watching. I just hope that the jurors are better trained as human beings to understand other human beings' behavior, because I really hope they have more tools they have gained during their life to be able to be specific in recognizing manipulative or honest, the difference between manipulative and honest answers. All of the signs from this character right here were manipulative. They were put on. They did not come from a place of honesty. They did not come from a place of truth. Going into the tears, because a lot of people all over, a lot of the experts, when they're being asked, when they're talking about the honesty with which he was emotionally crying, real tears. There were things coming out of his nose and out of his mouth, the smacking of the lips. Those are nervous, habitual tics that we all have due to nerves, due to tension in our body and in our mind. Those tics, he might think he's using them to get empathy or sympathy from the jurors. He takes the jurors for granted, the same way that bad actors do the same thing that he did. He puts on all these emotions, he puts on all these sounds, he cries real tears. But because the tears come from a place of untruth, he may have real tears. Those tears may come from a place of, I cannot believe I did this to my son. I cannot believe I did this to my wife. Because maybe in his mind, when he was planning to do this horrible, gruesome act, he did not know that it was going to turn out to be so bad. So now he's playing in his mind what had happened at the kennels, what he did, in my opinion, to have gone so much worse than he expected. So when he's crying for himself, the tears are real, but because they come from a place of selfishness for him, because he's concerned about himself, about him having done them so wrong, or they have done them. It doesn't even matter. The words don't matter. It's about behavior. It's about comportment. If he now is crying those real tears because those images of him doing this gruesome act is making real tears come out of his eyes, those tears, because they do not move the audience, they do not move us, we know they are real, but they're not coming from a place of him having empathy for Maggie and Paul. He is crying for himself. They come out of a place of selfishness for himself. Even though we don't know exactly what happened when we watch him, we don't feel those tears because they don't come from a source of truthfulness around them. We detect them as acting coaches, as great actors do. They detect those. So when great actors will watch other actors in a acting session, for example, if someone starts crying on stage or on set, even though they have real tears on their cheeks, we watch and we ask ourselves as audience members, why do I not feel this person? Even though the real tears are there, there's a part in our brain that lets us know that those tears come from a place of selfishness. They don't come out of a place of regret and of a situation that was truthful of what had happened. He's crying for himself. When he's crying for himself, our brain, the brain of the audience, detects that he is selfish. He's crying for himself. He's crying for his life being at the point of no return. He's done for. He's not crying for the two victims. He's not crying for Maggie, his wife, and for his younger son, Paul. We don't have to know exactly where they're coming from. You just have to go by asking yourself, do I believe, do I feel for this guy when he's crying real tears? No, I don't. Yes, I do. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there, audiences, when they go to see a show or they watch a film and then they come back and they say, oh, did you see that actor in the film? Or did you see that actor on stage? He was crying real tears and I felt so bad. Even the audiences are not trained to be able to detect pretend from truth. Because if you are exposed to mediocre acting, you're not going to see a real great acting. You're not going to be able to make the difference between the two because you're not trained as an audience member. So I'm only praying that the jurors are smart enough and are trained enough as people from their own personal lives to be able to put themselves in the shoes of all these characters, part of this trial, to be able to understand if the feelings come from a real place of truth-telling about the situation. What is he doing the first thing right now in this first opening segment? He's actually admitting to all the wrongdoings because he wants to let the jurors know he is taking responsibility for everything that he's done bad. So then hoping that the audience, the jurors, I keep calling them the audience because I'm referring to this as a scenario in an acting environment, hoping that by admitting to all the wrongdoings where he stole money from all these people that were waiting for their case to be resolved, and they were putting all of their trust in this guy as a lawyer. They never in their wildest dreams ever thought that he was going to be the one to have resolved the case and not tell them and take the money, steal the money from them. So when he's putting himself in this beginning situation and he's saying to all the jurors, I've done wrong before. I've done people wrong. I stole money. I did this. I did this. It's an exercise that actors use. For example, if I get up on stage and I speak out and I admit to all the wrongdoings that I want to admit to as the character then I will make the audience believe that I am a responsible person. I am hoping as that character, the audience will believe. So he's playing again with the jurors by looking at them and saying, I did this, I did that, I wronged people, I'm a bad person. But when it comes to what I am being allegedly in this trial for, to have done this horrible act to my wife and to my son, that I did not do, because he's hoping to make that audience, the jurors, believe that if he did that, he would admit the same way to doing it as he admitted to all the other wrongs. He's saying, I could have never done this to my wife. I could have never done this to my son. Never, ever, ever. You must believe me. That's his subtext. You must believe me because you can see that I've admitted to everything else. The only reason he's admitted to everything else is because he has already admitted to everything else, to all the financial fraud. He's trying to play the audience to make him believe that he's such a person of integrity and responsibility. He's assuming it. So why would he not assume the responsibility of doing what he did to his wife and his son? Because he's admitted to everything else. Mr. Waters had a chance after he finished his beginning monologue about how responsible he is to admit to all the wrongdoings, the financial wrongdoings to so many people. Mr. Waters could have asked them the same way that you take responsibility now, sir, for all the things that you have done wrong. Would you like to then tell us more specifically, why should the audience believe, why should the jurors believe that since you've done so many wrong things during your career, why are the jurors to believe that you've decided to stop at that? When you continue to lie about your whereabouts and you continue to tell everybody that you were not even at the scene, at the crime scene, the only thing that made you come and testify that you were there is now when you realize you have been exposed to have been there by your son, the one that you call little detective, Mr. Murdaugh, Paul, whose brains were blown out. Your little detective boy, your younger son, your little detective boy, he's the one that's letting us know for the last time that you are still a liar. So why don't you assume responsibility for that? Or would you like to give us an explanation to why only now, when your son exposed you for who you are? How are we to believe? How are we to believe you? And now you're saying you were at the place 2 minutes before the whole thing happened, but then you were gone. You were gone. So you continue to lie. When did you change your character? When did you change from being a liar to being an honest person? When and how do you expect us to believe that that's the case? Even in this behavior, when he's showing the picture, Mr. Waters is trying to show the picture that he has of him when he's in the hospital after the boat accident, and all the kids, with the exception of one that was found out that she was dead, she was found in the water. When he goes to the hospital, they can see his badge. He's wearing a badge used by him in order to get away with so many things that normal people, mere mortals, do not. If you saw, even in that clip, in that segment, when he was being asked, do you see this picture? He was showing a picture from him with a badge coming out of his pocket or whatever the badge was on him. Do you recognize that person? Mr. Waters said. Do you recognize that person? Alec Murdaugh is so specific in the way that he answers. That's what I'm talking about. He's playing Mr. Waters. He was so specific because he's waiting to hear exactly what the questions are. He's making it so difficult for the prosecutor because he looks at the picture, and I'm sure in the pictures there were more people. But of course, normally he would know that Waters is asking him about, do you recognize this person? Meaning, do you recognize yourself in the picture? He is playing him even in this point. He's trying to get Waters off of his tracks in the line of questioning by saying, no, I don't know who that person is, referring to the other person in the picture, to say, are you asking me about the other person in the picture? Are you asking me about me in the picture? He's putting all these obstacles for the prosecutor. That's how observant and detailed he is. And that's why it doesn't make sense that when he goes to the description of the things that he doesn't want to describe, he says that I don't recall. He says, I don't remember. But he has such a good memory when it comes to the things that he's trying to create obstacles with in the questioning, in the cross-examination of the prosecutor, but then he doesn't remember the rest. So Mr. Waters had an opportunity again when he saw that Alec Murdaugh was playing him in this little question. Do you recognize that person, Mr. Murdaugh? Why could he not have said, do you recognize yourself with a badge in that picture, Mr. Murdaugh? Do you? Instead of giving him the general, do you recognize that person? Oh, you mean the person next to me? I don't know who that person is. He's trying to get Waters off of his track of interrogation, of questioning. That's how conniving and that's how manipulative he is. He's had a whole life of manipulative behavior. So he knows how to manipulate in this very instant. Mr. Waters, instead of going, oh, that's how he's going to play this. Oh, he's not going to go in answering the questions the way that I thought he was going to answer the questions. Therefore, I have to change my tactic in the way that I observe him, in the way that I go about questioning him. Waters was trying to stay with the same tactic, even though he saw that his behavior was taking him off of his tactic. He was trying to stay with the same one. Why would you try to stay with the same tactic when you see that he's taking a different approach? And you, if you were a good lawyer, if you were a great actor playing a lawyer, you would have known to change, to adapt to the new tactic of your person you're interrogating, you're questioning. Another thing that he's doing when he's being asked about the badge. Did you usually walk around with a badge like you are the sheriff of the town because you wanted favors and you wanted to be treated differently? Did you want to just get a lot of favors? And the reason why they were playing favors to you and they were playing favors to your family is because you were the law. The same way that they were the law, you were the law. Does that make sense? But he never put the things together. He never connected. What Murdaugh was saying, he never followed up on it. He stayed with his questioning without taking into consideration the answers that Alec Murdaugh was giving him, when he could have just followed with those and he would have gotten him off of his tactic. But he never got him off of his tactic until towards the end. I think towards the end, he did say some things that were actually very powerful. Another thing that he does, which is very manipulative, is whenever he's being asked a question, he will repeat the question. He will repeat the question because he wants to give himself enough time to think about how is he going to respond in a way that he's still trying to get himself out of these situations that would make him look bad, and at the same time mess up the questioning and the tactic of the prosecutor Waters. Oh, did I have a badge? Are you asking me, did I have a badge? Sir, is that what you're saying? Are you asking me if I have that? Was I aware that I was carrying a badge when I went to the hospital to try to tell all those friends of Paul to not say anything about the boat accident and to not say that my son Paul was the one that was driving the boat that created such horrible outcome for everybody, but most importantly for the parents of the girl who ended up dead in the water? He doesn't do that. The fact that you're coming now here to tell a new story, Mr. Murdaugh, is because you have been sitting in this courtroom and you have seen the evidence that was coming in, and you are testifying now because you have to come up with a justification to fit your new story that you want to tell. The story that until now you lied about, the fact that you cannot even remember exactly what happened, and you cannot even exactly remember what you said the last time you saw your wife and your child. The fact that you're here, Mr. Murdaugh, is because the story you're telling now to fit in with the new evidence, the most important evidence from your son, Paul, the little detective came in. He left a trail of what happened He left for the whole world a trail with a video that puts you at the kennels when you all along, for all this time, you have told us that you were not there. You said you were not there. You said you left them there and you went back to the house and you took a nap. But your son, Paul, he is giving us the evidence from beyond the grave, the little detective, that you don't even want to say that you were calling him little detective, even though other witnesses came and testified that he was called little detective. But now you're having a problem with the words, and instead of saying he was a little detective, you're saying he was very intuitive, because you know the sound of little detective is provoking other emotions when the jurors hear that, as if to say that he left us the evidence that you were there. He left us the evidence, again, that his father, you, Mr. Murdaugh, are a liar, never ceased to be a liar. That never changed. Those are the personal questions that Waters did not go into. He left everything in a general way. He put questions to him that were general, that were not attaching the jurors. They were not pulling at the heartstrings of the jurors because they were general, specific, personal questions where you bring in the people supposedly that Alex Murdaugh cares so much about. Bring them in. Don't be afraid of taking a risk, and bring them in the way that I just talked about. This is the perfect time for Waters to say, Mr. Murdaugh, answer the question, yes or no. Why are you giving him this time to go into his little monologues? This is what you've done. This is what you've done. You do this over and over again. You change the storyline. You change your fictional storyline to something that's going to fit the evidence, to something that's going to fit you to benefit from. And then he lets him go, done what? I just told you, Mr. Murdaugh, would you like for me to repeat the question? Waters should have said directly. I'll repeat the question if you did not understand it the first time. Don't let him go on and on and on talking about nonsense, taking away the power from the question. Now the jurors are going to be listening to him doing his monologue about it, as if he's this man who doesn't understand what he was asked. That's exactly what he's doing. The evidence proves this is what you're doing. Direct questioning. If you disagree so much with what I'm putting out, then you tell us, what are you disagreeing with? What are you disagreeing with, Mr. Murdaugh? Tell me. Are you disagreeing with the fact that you lied, that you were there when your wife and son had their brains blown out? You disagree with that? Still, you disagree that you have not seen them. Are you going back to the previous story now? Is that what's happening now? In this moment, Mr. Murdaugh, are you going back to your first version of the story to say that you had not seen them for about 45 minutes? Because you're trying to take yourself away from being around them when the crime happened. So which story are we to believe? Are you going back and forth between the first version of the story to the second? Which one is it, Mr. Murdaugh? This is the nervous tension in the body and the mind, when the body doesn't know what to do with it. And then it comes out in different habitual expressions. But he thinks that's something that's going to captivate the jurors, and the jurors are going to say, oh, look at him having emotions. His emotions come from a place of being angry right now, because he was caught, because he's being told over and over again that he's coming up with a new storyline to fit the evidence that was left by his detective son, Paul. So sad. Oh my goodness. This is another moment that you missed. When was the fact that he's coming out with, I would have said, observation, Mr. Waters. Take a listen. Be in the moment. You're looking at him, but you're not seeing him. You're concentrated on holding your stupid water. When I see people drink water during a rehearsal in acting, I just want to take the water and throw it out the window. Don't allow your senses to be involved in something that's like a bottle, because you're not going to be alert as a prosecutor, as an observer to what's happening, if you're involving the sense of touch and the sense of taste to your stupid bottle of water, which you could wait until the break, then the other senses are not going to be developed. They're not going to be heightened enough to be able to pay attention to what he's saying. If he's starting to make all these habitual tics, nervous tics, I would have been very kind if I were Waters, and I would have said, Mr. Murdaugh, are you okay? Do you need some water, sir? Because you're making all these sounds. It seems like you're making all these sounds with your mouth. You're smacking your lips around, or you're blowing your nose, or you're inhaling, breathing in a different way than I've just seen you do a couple of minutes ago. Would you like some water? Do you have water? Is your mouth dry? Is your mouth dry, Mr. Murdaugh? Do you need my water? Here I am. I'm offering you a generous part of me, and I'm saying, do you want to take a moment? Do you want to take a moment? I'll get you a new bottle of water. Let me know when you can talk, and let me know when your mouth is not going to be dry. That's how you respond in the moment between two characters who are being played by actors. If you take in the other person and you are responsive in this way to the other actor, then you're going to take the other actor by surprise. So he's not going to be able to go on the same way that Alex Murdaugh is going on and on with his way of telling the story, because he's not being interrupted in any way by Waters. Waters is drinking water the whole time. I don't know, there's a joke in there. I'm not trying to make a joke because this is like really, really bad, but what's happening, it's even called the trial of the century. But it's just so annoying when you see that this lawyer is not trained. Why doesn't he take acting for lawyers? Mr. Waters, I'm available. Call me. His team, call me so I can train you. There are so many seminars who are being done by smart lawyers where they hire people like me, acting coaches, with all of these tools that I'm talking about, trial of the century, and they don't prepare the prosecution. The state doesn't prepare to be specific and detailed in the way that they present their case. Really, it's so annoying. It's so annoying. This is about something that was really horrible that happened to two people. So if you want to provide justice, if you want to bring justice, then you have to be prepared. If you're not prepared as an actor to go on stage, you're being told to get off. You're concerned about your crazy water holding it, but then you're not acknowledging all of the other things, because if you're using the sense of touch with the water in the sense of, I'm going to drink water and I'm going to taste the water and I'm going to bring it to my lips, then the sense of sight, which is what makes you visually be observant and in the moment with the person in front of you, is not going to be as heightened to be able to respond to what he's doing. Would you like some water, Mr. Murdaugh? Because I see your mouth is dry. Would you like a tissue? And then he would have come as the nice person to the jurors. He would have come as the person who is just a professional prosecutor who knows his work, but at the same time, he's being kind in the way that he's asking the questions. So the jurors don't take the side of Alex Murdaugh because the prosecution is becoming aggressive. You can still become aggressive for moments and you offer him water because his mouth is dry or ask him about it, then you don't seem like the aggressor. Mr. Murdaugh, I asked you a question. Where did all the money go? Please answer my question. Well, he starts, I don't know. I can't really answer those questions because I know some of the money. I mean, if you're asking me, Mr. Waters, if where the money went was to pills only, or was it my lifestyle? No, Mr. Murdaugh, answer the question. Where did all these money go? Where? Don't let them go on and on and on and on. You haven't looked at the records. Would you like to look at the records? He's saying, okay. Why is Water saying okay? As if, okay, he's giving an affirmation to what he just said. What are you talking about, Mr. Murdaugh? You haven't looked at the records? Well, let me provide you with the records. Here are the records. We're going to take time. And here are the records, sir. Question was, where did all the money go, Mr. Murdaugh? Now that you're looking at the records, please tell me what it says. Before going to the result of what was the outcome of that injury, why don't you ask particular questions again? Ask him, what were the injuries of this girl that you stole money from? Can you describe to us what the injuries were specifically? So he can create a visual and sensorial experience for the jurors so they can feel for that victim. You don't just go, oh, do you agree that this is what happened with the case? Do you agree that it was about the tire and the car and she was in an accident? How old was she, Mr. Murdaugh? How old was she? What happened to her when she came to you? What were the injuries? Create a sensory experience, create a specific understanding for the jurors to be able to sympathize, to be able to empathize before you just go to these general questions. Ask him specific, the same way that he's being specific and not wanting to answer, but he's always repeating the question of the prosecutor. He's wanting to diminish the situation. He's wanting to diminish the situation that he's being asked about. He knows how to do that. He knows how to be specific, but Waters doesn't get it. Tell us a little bit about the injuries. What exactly were the injuries? Since you pretended that you cared about her injuries to take her case, and you promised that you're going to get her money that she deserved, that's not going to make up for injuries that she had, but at least it will do something to make the situation a little bit better. What were the injuries? Alec Murdaugh was doing exactly the same thing when he was lying to all these victims that he was pretending to be on the side of for them to get the money from the different accidents that they horribly went through. He's not admitting to it personally, specifically in the moment. He's not saying, I did exactly that. What he's doing right now to them, to the jurors, he was doing before to these people. So he knows not to let Waters get away. He doesn't answer the question. Yes, I did exactly the same thing. He will never answer that question because he's smarter than Waters to know not to say that. So he's making his way around it. I mean, I don't know if I was doing fast talking the same way that Waters asked him, were you doing the fast talking to try to convince her that you're the good lawyer who's going to be on her side? Well, probably would have had to look her in the eye, but I don't know if I was talking fast. He's picking up every single word in the questioning of Waters, and Waters is picking up just general understanding from Murdaugh. That's the difference. My opinion is that Alec Murdaugh outsmarted Waters, and he's not even seeing it. Waters is not even seeing it. So you weren't doing fast talking, sir. Okay, were you talking slow then? He could have asked. Well, how did you talk, sir? How did you talk? Did you talk slow? Was that a different tactic than the way that you're talking fast right now? Did you have a different approach in the way that you were lying than you are doing right now when you're lying? Why did he not ask that? Every question that he has, he doesn't respond to it until he specifically looks at each of the evidence that's being put out there by Waters. Do you see? He won't even say, okay, where were you in the time that these texts were happening between you and Maggie? Oh, it would have to be between the hotel, the ball game, or because he didn't see the next evidence that Waters was going to put in. So he's waiting for every detailed evidence for him to answer. He's so careful about the way that he responds. He doesn't want to lead them. He doesn't want to help them at all. He doesn't want to say yes or no, because those are so much more definite answers from somebody. Oh, I didn't see that. Let me see that. I don't know. Let me see that. And then he takes every moment that he can to make sure that he's not giving Waters any easy way to go about this questioning. He's making it so difficult, and he's taking so much time with everything, repeating himself, looking at the next text. Oh, that's what you meant. Okay, well, if you have that in evidence, then I trust you. I trust you. As if to say to the jurors, oh, I'm here as a participant. I trust you. I have nothing to lie about. Go ahead and proceed with your questioning. I'm innocent. Okay, the pill situation. I think everybody talking about his pill addiction and the way that some people are kind of taking his side by saying, I understand what it's like to be an addict. I don't know personally what it's like, but I can tell you, for somebody to put so much into that aspect of who he is, him talking about he was an addict for so many years, he was taking 60 pills a day to I don't know how many pills a day. For somebody to be able to know so much about it, that makes an addict, because he knows exactly about it. You have to remember, when he was being charged with all these crimes, the defense lawyers, also his good friends, they decided to do was, oh, he's going to go into a rehabilitation center for the first time. He's never gone into a rehabilitation center before the crimes. He's never tried in practice to do anything to actually make himself come off of these pills. But now he's going into the rehabilitation because I think he's trying to bring in this other aspect to his life where he can blame the pills for the paranoia that he talks about, not in this particular segment, but he talks about the fact that he was paranoid. The reason why he lied to the police, to SLED, was because he was paranoid, afraid to mention that he actually had seen his wife and his younger son the last time only a few minutes before the whole crime happened. So he lied about it due to his addiction and due to the so many pills that he was taking over the years. He had paranoia. The prosecutor never jumped on that. So what were those symptoms like? What are the symptoms of somebody, if you're saying that you were an addict, let's just take that, and you were taking 60 pills a day, and you had paranoid thoughts about, oh, I better not tell him that I was there just a few minutes before the crimes happened, because then I'm afraid they're going to consider me to be a suspect. And those were my paranoid thoughts. What were those paranoid thoughts make you do? What would they make you do? Can you tell us other ways in which that paranoia was expressive in yourself? Can you give us like more details? Did you have any other days, or did you have any other encounters with other people outside of the time of the crime? What would paranoia make somebody do, Mr. Murdaugh? If you were able to lie before you knew that there was going to be evidence taken by your little Paul detective son to put you there just a few minutes before the crimes happened, if you're able to lie to SLED and to the law enforcement about your whereabouts, not helping them with that lie to find out who were the murderers, you were not helping them find out and get justice for your beautiful wife and your beautiful son that you say you love so much. What else did paranoia make you do? Did it make you have thoughts while you were having a conversation the last time that you saw your wife and son? Did your thoughts of paranoia make you take out guns and do the crime? Could that be a possibility? Since you say that you had no control over the paranoia due to your drug addiction, why wasn't that made part of the whole questioning? Those details. Alec Murdaugh gave Waters the paranoia. Hang on to the paranoia. Continue, follow up, ask details about it. Give us other situation in which you were paranoid and how was your behavior. What does paranoia make one do? Nope. Moving on. Waters moving on. He's trying to move on with the next questions because he feels like all he wants to do is ask his questions as he was thinking he was going to ask them, without taking into consideration that when you're going to interview someone, when you're going to question someone, you have to pay attention to what their other character is giving you in return, and you have to respond to that. You can't respond to what you have had imagined that he was going to respond. You have to respond to what is in the moment, to what he's giving you now. Paranoia. He let it go. It didn't take me long to come back, and it didn't take me that long to shower. When did you shower? Where did you shower? When was the shower, Mr. Murdaugh? How long did it take you to shower exactly? Where did you shower? Did you change your clothes? Was there just one shower? Moment by moment by moment to what he's giving you. He's giving you facts that you're just overlooking, Mr. Waters. Okay, so he's saying all these details, all this new story that you're coming up with, Mr. Murdaugh. I just want to make sure that I've said this before, but I want to make sure that we're letting people know again, these are all facts and these are details that you're coming up with now. Nobody's heard these details because the lie that you told before now is no longer to be believed because it was a lie, but until now you maintain that that was the truth. You maintain that that was the truth, that you made everybody believe that was the truth. So in the way that you're changing your story right now, all these details coming out, you're able to convince the people that everything that you made them believe to be the truth now was a lie. And now this is the new version of the story. Murdaugh is being caught by that because it was more of a direct questioning from Waters for the first time. And he says, I'm sorry, say that again. And then Waters goes to say it again instead of paying attention to Murdaugh, say, which part do you want me to repeat, Mr. Murdaugh? So Waters should have been like, which part would you want me to repeat? Which part of my question would you like me to repeat, sir? Very nice, with generosity. That would show generosity towards the defendant. That would show generosity towards this alleged murder. And look at the way that Waters is looking at him without listening to what Alex is saying. Listen to the ambulance outside. If he were present, if anybody was present in the court and I'm watching that, nobody's listening to what's going outside. For an actor playing a lawyer or for an actor playing Murdaugh as a character, they would have paid attention. Not necessarily that you have to like all of a sudden change your behavior, but for them to be in the moment would have proven that you're listening to those things outside. As actors, we have to take the things that are surrounding us, take them in. That means that our senses are alert. The prosecution senses are not alert to what's happening because he's so stuck in the way of him wanting to get out all his questions as the prosecutor instead of being alert to what's happening and alert to what this guy is saying. He jumped again. Why did you jump again? You just asked him the lie that you told about when you last saw your child, Paul, and your wife, Maggie, the last time that you saw them, the people you would not hurt. You decided that it was a good idea to lie about in the process of how you contribute to solve who the murderers were. That's what you thought was going to contribute to what was going to bring justice to your loved ones, to two members of your family that you love so much. You decided that you were going to lie about it. That was your contribution to it. No, he goes on. Okay, this is the perfect example how all of those emotions that he was having before when sitting in the trial for so many weeks and when everybody was recreating and testifying about the crime, he was blowing his nose, he was crying, so-called fake real tears coming of a place of selfishness for himself and what he's done to his life. But now that he's being asked the questions by the prosecution, he's not having those emotions. Why do you think he's not having those emotions? He's not having those emotions because now he knows that he's got to defend himself. He needs to be alert in the moment, the way he enters and manipulates the jurors and manipulates the prosecution, but he doesn't have one tear. He doesn't have one smacking of his lips. He doesn't call Paul Papa. He doesn't call all these nicknames to all these people that he did in the questioning the day before, because that was smart from the part of Waters when he said, how come all of a sudden you're giving nicknames to all these people, but we haven't heard any of the recordings of your interviews given to the police after the crime happened, recordings when you called 911. How come you never gave these people that you love so much nicknames and now you're doing it? That was good on the part of Waters that he caught him and he responded to that. Waters made him stop doing that. So he's not doing it anymore. He's not having emotions because now he's not being questioned by his defense team. When he was being questioned by the defense team, by his friends, lawyers, he was able to allow those fake emotions to develop and to be put on because he knew that he doesn't have to fear what the next question was going to be. So he was able to give himself space into the body to make his body tense stop so he can produce those heavy breathings and smacking of the lips. But now it doesn't matter that we've come so close to the place and to the time that the crime happened, because he was being caught in a lie and now he's testifying, trying to get himself out of it. Where are the emotions? Those emotions, if they were honest, like I said in the beginning of the episode, they don't take into consideration the line of questioning. They just come. If they were to come out of an honest place, if they were to come out of a truthful scenario, if he were to have been innocent, in my opinion, as an observer, from an acting coach's perspective, if he knew that he did not do these crimes, those emotions would come out of that place of honesty and they would surprise even him. They wouldn't just come when he turned them on, when he finds it easy to do and doesn't have to protect himself the way that he's trying to protect himself, being responsive in a way that requires for his mind to be concentrated much more to save himself. The emotions would have come. They just come. They surprise you. When emotions surprise you, that's when they come from honest place, because you don't even know where they're going to be triggered and what they're going to be triggered by. It's not just when you cue them the same way that he's been doing during the whole trial, when he is giving himself that space to do it because he knows he doesn't have to worry about the questioning. In the case of his defense attorney's questioning, direct questioning, you know exactly what happened to the chicken. You have such a vivid memory about what happened to the chicken and how it was in the mouth of the dog, of Baba. And then you took it out, and then you don't remember. You might have said goodbye, you didn't say goodbye, you're just going to leave the property. Did you say, I'm going to go visit my mom? Do you want to come with me, Maggie? Because the reason why I've asked you to come here, why didn't you ask him about that? What was Maggie and Paul doing at the property, and where was Buster? And Buster is another whole episode that I'm going to go into it, because I don't know if you guys have watched the Netflix documentary about this whole saga, or if you watch the HBO. I mean, there's so much that's happening. The one thing that I'll say, have you noticed that the way Buster is sitting in the courtroom, every time he's being mentioned by the defense attorneys, he is being mentioned with his girlfriend. There's Buster and his girlfriend. The way that Alec Murdaugh talks about him, it's about Buster and it's Brooklyn, his girlfriend. Why are they trying to drive this point across to people that he has a girlfriend? It's about Buster, the girlfriend. Buster has a girlfriend. Buster has a girlfriend. There's the girlfriend. But if you look at the interaction between the two of them, when they come to court and when they leave and when they sit together, I never see Buster interact. I never see any kind of relationship, chemistry. Even actors playing those characters would have a chemistry. You would see a hand being placed on Buster from the girlfriend, or Buster consoling the girlfriend. You would see some interaction, you would see some chemistry, because actors would have to come up with that chemistry, even if it's just friendship. You would have to see that between these two. There's nothing. I wonder what that is. And I'm not going to get into the whole story of Buster, you know, the whole story with the other murder that happened with a young beautiful child that was found on the street in the middle of the road, and the alleged, not proven, gossip and the rumors were that Buster might have had some kind of a relationship with that boy, but it was never proven. I don't know if the case is going to be reopened, but there's so much to that too. The Murdaugh family has so much power. They were able to just erase everything that, you know, would have come against them. I mean, they were so powerful. They were such a dynasty for 100 years. And I think that this guy, in my opinion, I think that after the boat accident, you know, there would have come the time where the trial would have gone on for Paul driving the boat, and he would have been sentenced or not sentenced to prison. And I think that was such a shameful, and this guy being such a egotistic and such a ego-driven manipulator who knew how to play people, and he knew how to take advantage of victims. I mean, to take advantage of victims, and not only stole their money, he couldn't even divide the money, at least to say, I'm going to steal half of it, but I'm going to give half of it to those people who are in so much need of those money. He couldn't even do that much. I mean, he wanted it all. And I think when the boat accident happened, he was so upset that the dynasty and his way of conniving and cunning were going to stop, that he blamed everything on the little detective Paul, and not blame that on his wife, but because his wife was having such a difficult time with it, from other witnesses testifying that she was really, you know, she was having a difficult time with her boy being the driver of the horrible accident that killed one human being, this beautiful girl. And I think that just got to him, being the manipulative, paranoid person, and instead of blaming himself for all the stuff that he's been doing, in my opinion, he just decided to take him out because he wanted to, in his crazy mind, save them from what was about to come, in his crazy mind. Selfish. I mean, you can go on for like days on and days on to be able to talk about everything that's happening. I think the conclusion is that I just wish that the same way that great actors are training themselves during their entire lives to be able to understand human behaviors. I think that detectives and I think that lawyers should be doing the same training, because I will tell you, if the prosecution would have taken acting lessons, would have done a session with an acting coach, they would have been so much better equipped at being able to deal with such a manipulator, because this guy, Alec Murdaugh, innocent until proven guilty, but my opinion is there's no way that he's not guilty. I mean, from his behavior, if I were to read about him as a character in a fictional story and I was to interpret his journey and his behavior and his nervous tics and the way that he's answering questions, the way that he's changing his story around, the way that he had done so many other things in his life, my opinion would have been he did it. To add on top of it, the fact that they have no proof, there's no proof that there was somebody else on the property. He says it. Was there anybody else there? Were the dogs barking as if there was somebody else on the property? There's nothing to suggest that there could have been somebody else doing what happened on that day during those few minutes, that he just happened to be gone. So I'm just saying, it's just so sad, because the prosecution could have been better equipped and trained to be able to have a better case, and now we're going to be left with hoping that justice will be done and they will do the right thing. If they're going to come up with whatever verdict they're going to come up with, it's not going to be on them. It's going to be on the case of the prosecution. And I'm just afraid that the case of the prosecution was not as it could have been. It wasn't as great as it could have been, even though they had the circumstantial evidence, but I don't feel that they leaned into it. There's so many things to deal with. I just felt that there were so many missing parts that the prosecution could have dug deep into them, and they would have provoked the jurors to have more to work with. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Bye.